What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with Inferno, Magneto versus Nimrod. And it's really more Magneto and Charles Xavier versus Nimrod, and the fight is epic. It's ridiculously epic. Okay, so here's the funny thing. This is the conclusion of Inferno. And initially I forgot that it was 4 issues long, right? Like I got to the end of the story and I was like, I mean, this is weird. This is a weird way to end the comic. Like it feels like it's over, right? And then I looked it up and I was like, well, that's because it is over, right? Because Marvel does so many 6-issue stories now that it's almost kind of weird when they drop a 4-issue series and like, that's it, right? It just kind of takes you by surprise. But in the last video that we did, we basically covered this segment and really covered the events where essentially Destiny and Mystique had gotten their hands on Moira MacTaggert. They had taken her. We didn't know exactly how they did it. We simply just knew that they had. And the result of this is that Xavier and Magneto were led into a trap where they believed Moira MacTaggert had been taken, where they believed that Mystique and Destiny were holding Moira MacTaggert, which was on the Orchis Forge. And so as soon as Magneto and Xavier teleport here, they're immediately met by the arrival of all these Orchis forces. Now, once all that stuff pops off, right? Once everything happens here, it gets kind of crazy because you had a kind of conversation between Magneto and Xavier, where remember, Magneto can gently lift his helmet and he can overhear the telepathic thoughts of Xavier. Anything short of that, and Xavier won't be able to get in, right? Magneto won't be able to hear anything Xavier is saying telepathically. The result of this is that they kind of have this quick bit of a discussion where they're like, that's Nimrod, right? Like Nimrod is alive and well. I mean, they kind of knew he was alive and well, but as you guys know, when it comes to somebody like Nimrod, there's a big difference between hearing he's alive, having it reported to you that he's alive, and standing in front of Nimrod, right? Because as we know, Nimrod killed Apocalypse, right? And one of the different lifespans of Moira MacTaggert, Nimrod killed Apocalypse. So this is no small thing, right? This guy is literally a living weapon. He can determine what your powers are and then basically develop the systems he needs to essentially counter them or even negate your powers. But the crazy thing about this is that you have this kind of thing where Omega, right? Remember, she's basically kind of like a future version of herself, or at least a version from the timeline where she's there to basically make sure that the war pops off the way that it's supposed to and the rise of the machines actually take place, right? So like the Sentinel program develops as it's supposed to, all of which will basically lead to this moment. And then presumably in the future, the idea of machines conquering humanity and the mutant population. And so when you have one of the Orchis agents who says like this is your last chance to go, the response to Nimrod is like, do you guys not realize the look in these guys' eyes and the eyes of Xavier and Magneto? They're ready to die, right? They're ready to die for their cause. And the Orchis agent's response is, so would we. And the response of Omega is, and so you have. And literally like Nimrod and Omega eradicate every single Orchis agent here, right? They kill them all. Like that. It happened so fast. None of these guys ever had a chance. The reason behind why they did this is because Omega and Nimrod hate humanity. And the reason why they hate humanity is, remember that while Omega is still more of a cyborg than she is a pure human, she allies herself more with the machine than she does with her biological components. Nimrod is just full-on machine, right? He's literally an artificial intelligence that has basically gained sentience, right? Gained its own level of self-awareness and operates according to essentially ensuring that the mutant population is destroyed. But throughout the entire history of humanity's use of machines, they were tools, right? That's the thing that's really kind of said here by Omega is like, they're tools. And it's one of these funny things is because from their perspective, and it's almost one of these things where Hickman kind of toys with the idea of like Skynet, right? Terminator, that kind of a thing. The whole idea behind like the Animatrix, the war between like man and machine, this notion that like robots can basically have feelings, right? They can experience sadness and anger and pain and so on and so forth. Now, of course, in Marvel Comics, machines are very, very human in terms of how they're depicted. The only real exception to that are like Sentinels. But the important thing here is that humanity has always viewed and used machines as tools, but machines themselves, right? Nimrod being used as a tool to destroy the mutant population, so on and so forth, right? It basically pisses them off. They've hated humanity because of it. And so that really seems to be, and really seems to be the basis behind why it is that the machine population waged a war against humans and mutants. And it's why it looks like in that far-flung future, humanity basically had to merge with like proto-humans, right? Like the next stage of human evolution. Those individuals who were locked away in the vault, right? We saw those. They escaped for a time and then basically they went back in again, right? Those guys, right? Why humanity had to merge with them because it was the only way for humanity to survive. That in the face of a war between super advanced technology and mutants who could have powers ranging from the ability to read minds, spanning all the way up to controlling the entire Earth's electromagnetic spectrum, humanity was powerless. There was basically nothing they could do, especially when the one weapon they did have, which was machines, turned on them, right? right? And so you get this crazy thing because at that point, like literally Magneto just grabs a giant satellite, just brings it crashing down on him, which both of them knew nothing was gonna happen because of that, right? It's a hard sell to get anyone to believe that Nimrod could be killed by a multi-ton piece of just machinery. That's never going to happen. And in fact, Omega and Nimrod both escape the entire thing, and like the fight basically begins to break out. Now at that point, Xavier, and really what he's trying to do here is find where Moira MacTaggert is, right? I mean, they want to escape with their lives, but they also realize the longer this fight goes on for, the higher the likelihood they are going to die. Because the reality is, while Magneto is powerful and while Xavier is powerful, they're not on the level of power they need to defeat people like Omega or Nimrod, right? They just don't have that level of power. And so you get this kind of crazy moment here where Xavier just like freaks out, lashes out, and attacks Nimrod and just lets off this massive burst of psychic energy, which actually shatters Nimrod's entire brain. Now, on that surface right there, you would think that he would be killed. But before we find out, you actually switch directly over to Mystique and to Destiny. The reason being is because while Moira MacTaggert's here, remember, they've got a vendetta. Their desire is to kill Moira MacTaggert. And so when they're here down in this place below Krakoa, literally a gun is pulled by Mystique. And when the question of Moira MacTaggert is, are you really gonna kill me, right? You realize if you kill me, the entire universe will start over again. A new timeline will be created. You will have forgotten all of this. Maybe Destiny could come back and maybe Destiny will remember it all. We won't know for sure. But everything that's happened here will be obliterated. And the response of Mystique is, yes. And she pulls the trigger. And everything fades, right? Everything just blips. And like, that's it. At that point, you jump back, right, to the initial conversation that took place between Emma Frost and Mystique and Destiny. We didn't know exactly what tools Emma Frost had given to Mystique and Destiny to help them achieve their goal of capturing Moira MacTaggert and then presumably killing Moira MacTaggert and being able to do it all without Charles Xavier or Magneto realizing what their intention was. What you end up finding out here is that with this whole thing going on, because their goal is to kill Moira, of course, Emma says the same thing. If you kill her, you will restart reality. You cannot kill her as long as she is a mutant. That cannot be allowed to happen. And so at that point, Mystique just kind of starts to realize what it is that Mystique is saying. And she says, Forge once told me about the worst weapon he ever made, a gun that turns us into them, that makes a mutant human. But I saw the look in his eyes. He would never give that to us willingly. He would never, ever do that. And that's when Emma Frost presents the gun, right? She says, gifts. How to find Moira and what to do with her once you have. And so what you end up finding out here, this is the craziest thing. What you end up finding out here is that every instance where Moira MacTaggert was basically taken by Mystique, right? Everything that had to happen in order for that to take place, it was all orchestrated by Mystique, who was shape-shifting, right? It was all orchestrated by her, shape-shifting into people, switching from one person to the next, right? Creating dissent and confusion among the ranks of Orchis, driving them to attack each other, and then tricking Nimrod and Omega into fighting Charles Xavier and Magneto, right? Literally, Mystique orchestrated all of it. Now, here's the reason why that matters, right? Over the years, and really in more recent years, just the overall dangerous nature of Mystique has fallen to the wayside. And a lot of that's because Marvel never really did anything meaningful with her, right? She was just there. And Marvel kept her around because she was a legacy character, right? She'd been a legacy character since the days of Chris Claremont. She'd been a legacy character since like the old school X-Men days. She'd been a legacy character since X-Men the Animated Series, right? I mean, she'd just been around that long that she was a character you just couldn't really kill off for any real measure of time. But there was nothing really ever done with her that really illustrated how capable she was. What this does right here is show you just how dangerous Mystique is, right? If the world does not succumb to complete and total nuclear catastrophe, it's because Mystique allowed it. Like, that's really how dangerous she is. At any point in time, Mystique can impersonate a sitting president and then press the button and just launch a nuclear arsenal at another country, and there goes the world. That's the nature of Mystique, right? You could quite literally craft a story where Mystique kills the Marvel Universe and it would be believable, right? She's that capable. And it's so great to see Jonathan Hickman just like do her character justice, right? It's so great to see somebody who's not like, yeah, there's Mystique, she's a person there. No, to be like, no man, like Mystique, dude, she's on a whole different level, right? This girl has been around for quite some time. She's almost as old as Wolverine is, and she is stupidly dangerous, right? And so that's when you have this kind of crazy thing where basically Mystique reveals to Moira MacTaggert, we made you human, right? Like, we made you human, and that's it. And so that's when Moira's like, that's your plan, is to like take my powers away and then kill me? Like, that's it? And so that's when Moira MacTaggert basically spills the beans and says, you hardly understand what's going on here, right? Like, your desire to kill me here is because of some vendetta where I'd basically been messing with timelines and stuff like that, and like you set me on fire, right? And like I've been hiding from you and so on and so forth. Like, you think you understand what's going on. You have no clue. This timeline, right? This whole timeline that I've created, where I basically drove Xavier and Magneto to form the Quiet Council to build the nation of Krakoa. From their perspective, I'm saving the mutant population. The reality is, I don't care anything about Krakoa. I don't care anything about the mutants on Krakoa, right? I have lived these lives 1,000 times. I have seen this happen so many times, and every time it ends the same way. It ends in a war between the human population and the mutant population and the machine population. And humans sometimes merge with the post-human race, and sometimes they're destroyed by the post-human race. And all that's left are post-humans and machines and mutants. But no matter how it happens, no matter what takes place, no matter how it unfolds, mutants always die. We always get destroyed every single time without fail. That's what happens. There's no way to stop that. If any timeline is created out there that allows the mutant population to propagate long enough, we will be obliterated. The reason why I created Krakoa, the reason why I orchestrated Xavier and Magneto doing this, forming the Quiet Council and consolidating the entire mutant population down, is so I could destroy it. So that what I could do is quite literally start manipulating things behind the scenes so that kids who are born on Krakoa are born without powers. That I would basically neutralize them. This gun you have in your hand, it's a basic, simple thing, right? It takes the powers away from a person. I aim for mutant genocide. I aim to set things up so that there will never be mutants who are born again, right? So this war between the mutant population and any other populations out there will never come to fruition. The mutant race will survive because the mutant race will not exist. All of us will be made into humans. That was the goal of Moira MacTaggert, and it's just like, damn, son! Like, she was basically boxing the mutant population in so she could wipe out the mutant population. That's nuts, right? Basically, we would sterilize the mutant gene in the mutant population, and that would be it. And it's just like, okay, like, this is crazy. Like, this is absolutely nuts. And so at that point, you switch over to Professor X and you switch over to Magneto, right? Now, here's a crazy thing that goes on here. Magneto was playing possum with Omega, right? Like, Charles Xavier hits up Magneto and says, we're running out of time, we have to find Moira. And Magneto says, yes, I know, Charles, we will, right? And that's when he asks Omega, like, you heard him, didn't you, right? We have a question that we want answered. And the answer of Omega is, you shouldn't worry about him, you should worry about yourself. And the response of Magneto is, no, you should worry about me. And like, seizes the mechanical components of Omega, right? Like, it seizes, man, oh, man, dude, it's about to get nuts, son. Okay, here's the thing. Dude, it's, man. Y'all are not prepared, right? So here's the thing. While all that's going on, right? Like remember, like literally, like Xavier destroyed the head of Nimrod. But remember, Nimrod can reconstitute himself, and this is a far more advanced version, right? Remember, the original Nimrod is referred to as Nimrod the Lesser. This was referred to as Nimrod the Greater. He's more powerful and he can regenerate faster, right? This guy's designed to just be an absolute wrecking machine, and that's literally what happens. Is just like as Magneto is basically interrogating Omega by pulling her machine components off of her body, that immediately, as soon as Nimrod reconstitutes, he grabs Xavier, and that's when he tells Magneto, he was just like, we don't have time for this, right? Like, here's the thing to understand. You probably need this guy as much as I need her. So you have to ask yourself, how much will others have to pay when your actions put their lives on the line? Now, the crazy thing here is Xavier basically tells Magneto, no, we should leave. Like, we should leave here right now. They will kill us if we stay. But Magneto won't. He won't give, he's like, no, that's not gonna happen. Like, I'm not giving it up. Like there's no circumstance where you leave here alive, Nimrod. Right now, Nimrod's whole thing is, if you let her go, I will let him go. We'll call today a draw, we'll go our separate ways. And so essentially it's kind of Nimrod and Xavier who are somewhat on the same side here, where it's like Magneto, let them go, right? And it's one of those crazy things, right? Magneto's like, here, this machine, I have lost everything multiple times, so I am well conditioned to accept some small losses for greater gains. And so because of the fact that Nimrod's basically told, I will die and destroy you here before I let anything else go on in this place, the response of Nimrod is fine. Then ultimately this is a grudge between you and me, so then we'll make it a grudge between you and me, right? Like, I will let them go. I will let Xavier go, and you will let Omega go, and then you will, like, they'll leave. They'll get out of here. And then it'll just come down to you and me. And so the response of Magneto is, what do you want me to do, Charles? Right now, this is very, very important, right? Charles says, they don't have Moira MacTaggert, Eric. She's somewhere else. That knowledge will die with us. We have to try. You have to trust them, right? Like, if we die here right now, we will not remember where Moira MacTaggert is. Like, all this information that we've gained here, we won't recall. And so we'll basically have to start this search all over again. And so in turn, Magneto's like, fine, I agree to your terms, release him. And the response of Nimrod, I am so sorry you trusted me. Flat! And then just totally eradicates Xavier. At that point, Magneto loses it, just totally loses it, just freaks out, just totally crushes Omega, right? And then at that point, goes after Nimrod. But remember, Nimrod can duplicate. And so at that point, it's just creating duplicates of himself, right? And so it's literally Magneto fighting two Nimrods, and it is crazy because while that's going on, Omega is still somewhat alive, right? It's still like, she's still somewhat there. Man, here's a great thing, man. Magneto's holding his own against two Nimrods, man. That's no small thing, right? Like understand, a Nimrod killed Apocalypse. Magneto's holding his own against two, right? It's crazy to see this happening right now. Here's the kicker behind all this. Omega's not dead, right? I mean, her body's basically ripped to pieces. She's all over the damn place, but she can still communicate with her psychic components. And at that point, like literally, she says like, I have something special for you, mutant, a surprise, a power dampener, activates it and shuts off the magnetic abilities of Magneto. As soon as that happens, here comes Nimrod and it's wow. Nimrod takes out Magneto. And at that point, Omega reconstitutes herself. And then like literally Magneto's just kind of laying there, right? He's like, this is not over, right? Like there's no way this is over, right? We're gonna keep going, like we're gonna keep fighting. And the response to them is like, no, right? And they literally blow the whole place up, right? They just detonate the whole spot. And Magneto's like, I will see you again, right? And the response of Omega is, of course you will, mutant. It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable we will meet again. We will see you in the future. And when that war comes, we'll destroy you then too. At that point, switch back over to Mystique and to Moira MacTaggert and Destiny, right? Just crazy ass thing. So you have this whole conversation going on, right? Where it's like, okay, so the goal of Moira MacTaggert here was to basically sterilize the mutant population over the course of a couple generations and then basically ensure that the mutant population had no powers by the time this war came to fruition, right? And so basically they're just like, let's kill her, right? Let's just kill her and be done with it. Enter Douglas Ramsey, right? Cipher. Now remember, Cipher's been watching all of this. And that was one of the things that was established, right? This is why Jonathan Hickman writing is so important, is because things that were referenced a couple issues ago or things that were referenced a year and a half ago are incredibly important by the time you get to the end. And so to kind of reiterate here, one of the things that we'd learned is that as soon as Doug Ramsey was contacted by Professor Xavier to visit the island of Krakoa and to basically find a way to turn that place into a kind of a refuge for the mutant population, Cipher never believed in Xavier. I mean, he believed in him, but didn't believe him, right? He thought that there was something else going on. He's like, I've been a New Mutant, I've been an X-Man, I've been a part of the mutant community long enough to know that Xavier's not the most trustworthy person out there. And so working alongside Warlock and basically the island of Krakoa itself, that where the hub of Moira MacTaggert was created, and it was basically going to be hidden from the eyes of everybody except for those who could access it, Douglas Ramsey used the power of Warlock to basically create a kind of back door for himself so he could witness everything that was going on. So every single conversation that had ever transpired between Moira MacTaggert and Xavier and Magneto, everything that was supposed to be hidden from the mutant population, where no one was supposed to know what was actually going on, Cipher knew it. Douglas Ramsey knew it. And then for a really interesting reason that doesn't seem to be made clear, that Douglas Ramsey believes in Krakoa. Even if he he doesn't necessarily believe in the ideologies or the philosophies of Xavier and Magneto, and especially not Moira MacTaggert, he believes in what can happen here on Krakoa. And he's been watching all this unfold. And so as soon as he arrives, he basically says, okay, here's the thing, Mystique, you could kill Moira MacTaggert, but here's the problem. I believe in the laws that we have here. And what's the first law of Krakoa? Murder no man. You have made Moira MacTaggert a human. Now you intend to kill them. You intend to violate one of the most sacred laws of Krakoa, which is not to kill a human without that human having been put on trial, or to simply just not kill them at all, right? These laws that you fashioned for the rest of the mutant population, now you're gonna break them themselves. Is that how it is, right? Like the rules are for thee, not for me, right? Is that, I mean, are you Reddit, right? Do you create rules everybody else has to follow, but you don't follow them yourself? Is that really what this is? And so at that point, that's when Destiny chimes in, because where Mystique's like, well, I mean, okay, fine, we could just kill you and be done with it, right? Like we could just kill you right here, right? And then you could be reborn and you'll never remember any of this, Doug Ramsey. You'll never recall any of what happened here because I sit on the Quiet Council and I can manipulate behind the scenes and determine what it is that you do and do not recall, right? Corruption of the highest order. But at that point, Doug Ramsey's like, I mean, that's possible, but what about all of them? And that's when he brings in, right, Bay the Blood Moon, his wife from the Ten of Swords event. You guys remember that? She's wildly deadly. There's no way Mystique could take on Bay, right? I mean, that's never gonna happen. Mystique is capable, but she's not gonna kill this girl, right? And then there's just the whole island of Krakoa, which at any point in time could just expel the mutant population, just be like, you're all out of here, right? Everybody leave, right? Literally evict them from their own home. Like it's any one of these things. And so at that point, there's no way Mystique could basically kill Doug Ramsey without her actions being made public, and then she'd essentially be confined to the pit for pretty much for all eternity, just sitting down there with Sabretooth. And so as a result to this, that's when Destiny chimes in and says, no. Here's the thing. If you kill Doug right now, you'll basically be confined, right? It'll be the end of you. I will remain on the Quiet Council, but I will die 6 months later. And that Douglas Ramsey will basically remain in his current position, right? That he'll be reborn and that everybody will know what you did. Everything will go on. And like literally for you and I, we lose. For everybody else, they win. And then the question is, well, then what do we do about Moira MacTaggert? And the response of Destiny is Moira MacTaggert's future, it fluxes wildly, right? It branches. Who knows what's going to happen here? Right? Like we have no clue what's going to happen with her character. All we know is that she's human now. So whatever world is out there for her, she's going to have to just figure it out on her own. And so in turn, Doug Ramsey's like, okay, your life is saved, Moira MacTaggert, but understand you're now exiled. You can never come back to the nation of Krakoa. Like literally, Krakoa will let you use this gate one final time. But as soon as you pass through this gate, all gates to the mutant nation of Krakoa will be closed to you, right? It'll give you a head start. And so in turn, you have like this kind of amazing statement that's made by Mystique, right? Where she says like, you have what you've always wanted, Moira MacTaggert. You have your humanity. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy it while you run, right? The response of Mystique is like, we're going to find you and we're going to kill you. Make no mistake, Mystique and Destiny would forego their inclusion as part of the Quiet Council to kill Moira MacTaggert. But also understand, Moira MacTaggert will be out there in the world. There's nowhere she can go where she can hide from Mystique and Destiny. One, even if Destiny wasn't here, Mystique's capable enough, has enough resources and enough contacts, she could find her. But two, Destiny being here, she's a precog. She would ultimately be able to find out where Moira MacTaggert is somewhere along the line, right? As Moira MacTaggert's future becomes more clear, they would ultimately be able to locate her. And so because of that, like her days are numbered. It's only a matter of time before Moira MacTaggert dies. And so picking up 1 week after all of this, Magneto and Professor Xavier are brought back. And when the question's asked, how much time has passed, right? How long has it been? The response of Emma Frost is long enough for things to change, especially those which needed it most. And so when Xavier asks, like, what have you done, Emma? She says exactly what you would have done, Charles, something quite radical. I told the entire Quiet Council everything that had happened. I told them about Moira MacTaggert. I told them about your secret meetings with Moira MacTaggert. I told them everything you had kept hidden from them. But here's the irony of this. The Quiet Council seemingly agreed that Charles Xavier and Magneto keeping these secrets from the rest of the mutant population was the right thing. The mistake was keeping those secrets from the Quiet Council. Now, here's an important distinction to understand, right? Let's say that like NASA with their advanced telescopes and all that kind of stuff figured out that a meteor was coming to Earth and it was going to crash into the Earth in the next like 3 years, right? Like it was on a collision course, it was going to hit the world, it was going to wipe out all life on the planet. The question you have to ask is, should humanity be told? The correct answer to that question is no. You do not tell the rest of humanity. Why? Because humanity will do the only thing it knows how to do in a time of desperation. It will panic. And when that happens, it'll just create chaos, right? Literally, humanity will destroy the world before the meteor does. That's exactly what's going to happen. That human beings cannot be trusted with the knowledge of their impending death, right? That humanity has consistently, time and time and again, shown that it cannot handle that kind of information. If the Quiet Council had revealed all of this to the entire mutant population, it would have destroyed everything, right? It would have destroyed everything that had happened, right? And it probably would have led to some kind of a civil war among the mutant population. That civil war would have spread out into the rest of the world, and then all warmongering eyes would have fallen on the nation of Krakoa, and literally the mutant population would have brought about its own destruction, because some kind of conflict somewhere would have led to the shores of some human nation somewhere and would have inflicted catastrophic damage, right? I mean, you guys remember the events of Civil War when Nitro detonated in Stamford, Connecticut, and that initiated the passage of sweeping legislation regarding the ability for superheroes to act with their identities being kept private. And so at the end of the day, the Quiet Council agrees this information will stay with us, right? The Quiet Council is a curse as much as it is a burden now, right? Like the information that you have is now our information. We have to go forward essentially knowing that our own doom is impending, and we have to try to find some way to keep that from happening. And so what this does is this ends Jonathan Hickman's work on the X-Men. What it looks like after this, I have no clue. But Jonathan Hickman's gone, right? He's done. He's actually been gone from Marvel for a little while now, right? He's working on three Worlds, Three Moons, whatever it is, with like Scott Snyder and all those guys. So he's doing his own thing. But like right now, yeah, Hickman's run is finished. Hickman's work is done. At this point, who knows? Like we know we have Jerry Conway writing X-Men right now, but who knows how the X-Men landscape's gonna look? It could be in 2 years, Marvel just sets everything back to the way it was before and goes back to writing crappy X-Men stories. So who knows? But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.